Hi, I'm natekokernot and I want to welcome you to my channel, where I am talking these next few days about truth and our very human tendency to want to know what it is. Today, I'm going to deliver my gentle critique of postmodernism, not because I don't like it or what it stands for, but rather because when we stop and contemplate the deeper meaning of it, we can appreciate why there's so much chaos and disorder in the world right now. And I think we'd all like it to stop. So I think postmodernism deserves another look. I would contend that the chaos we are experiencing today was the inevitable outcome of the postmodern ethos. It's not what was intended, but it makes sense that it would turn out like this. The postmodern idea was a collective reaction to the modernist period of the Enlightenment, which was all about the harnessing of the scientific method to discover absolute truth, and the collective finding that even the scientific method wasn't convincing enough to get everyone to agree on some truth or other. Postmodernism offered us an uneasy truce when it proposed that we should all be willing to accept our truth as our truth and at the same time respect other people's rights to cling to their truth as their truths. It was essentially an admission that the truth can't be proven even by science, and also a plea that we don't try and destroy each other in the process of defending our separate truths. Postmodernism wasn't just about truth. When it was introduced, it was also looking at beauty as a subjective thing as well. It was essentially saying that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And there, I think, it was 100% accurate, and that it didn't lead to any trouble necessarily, but truth is in a different realm than beauty. It's not about aesthetics, it's about what's really happening. I don't know if your mind can conceive of the idea that there is no ultimate truth about what is really happening, but mine cannot. That simply doesn't make any sense to me. Postmodernism began to trend upwards in the 1960s with the influence of philosophers like Jean-Francois Lyotard, who defined it as an incredulity towards meta-narratives, meaning a license to be skeptical towards any findings that claim to be a truth that applies to all of us. And Michael Foucault, who has focused more on the intersection of power and knowledge. We all need to have some basis for our decisions, and that requires an understanding of the workings of things around us. We cannot abandon the idea of truth entirely because we need it for survival. But it does seem reasonable to me that we would naturally trust the truth we know over truth that someone else introduces to us. Accepting someone else's truth as a basis for our decisions would require a major and sudden adjustment in us. And the statement, "I've gotten this far by following my own truth, why would I want to switch horses in midstream?" that also makes a lot of sense. And then there's the freedom of speech aspect to the postmodernist ethos. Yes, of course, we all want to feel free to say what we think the truth is. And I don't in any way want to attack people's right to free speech for fear that mine could be taken away if that precedent were set. Of course, that's the moment we're in right now. Free speech is being challenged yet again. And this time, it appears that we might risk more than just being canceled on the internet if we share a controversial truth. Now there's the very real risk, it seems, that we could be thrown in jail for saying our truth if it opposes the truth of the powers that be. Before the internet came about, it wasn't all that messy. Yes, there were a lot of opposing truths being thrown around, but not as quickly, and not as many. We had, for instance, just a handful of options for whose reporting we would listen to if we wanted to know the truth about world events. A few TV channels, radio, a print news existed, and based on our leanings, we could choose the best fits for us. When the internet came on the scene, we were gradually introduced to more and more versions of the truth, and slowly and gradually, our heads began spinning faster and faster in our attempts to get clear on what was really happening, and more importantly, what it really means for us. With the increasing influence of the internet, we've landed at a place now where we have as many editorialists on what is happening as we have consumers of news. And we have so many different stories and meanings which vary so widely from one another that it's frankly overwhelming. We have unwittingly made it so that the word truth has no meaning whatsoever anymore. And that is a very precarious place to be for all of us. Truth is clearly still important to us, or we wouldn't fight so hard to defend it. And it makes perfect sense that it does, because we all need to trust our own version of the truth to base our decisions on something rather than nothing. Post-modernism held for a while as a let's agree to disagree truce. But with the introduction of the internet, things have gotten out of hand, and it appears as though many of us have abandoned the idea of absolute truth as a thing worth pursuing at all. I could conceive of a world that maintains some semblance of harmony within these conditions, but there's one more piece of this equation that makes harmony pretty unlikely, and that is emotions. And emotions are true. I've said before in previous episodes that when we boil emotions down to their essence, they are really about feeling safe or not safe. We all know what it feels like to feel unsafe, and we can all understand why that's not a preference for anyone. When we don't understand our surroundings, we can't trust our decision-making, and we naturally feel less safe as a result. That's why we cling to our personal truth, even if others tell us it isn't true, because a consistent plan is more helpful than an inconsistent plan, even if it is consistently untrue. It is at least reliable for the most part, as long as it doesn't have any contradictions embedded in it. The other wildly fantastic aspect to this discussion about postmodernism is that on the level of experience, it is actually true that the truth can be different for everyone. And here I hearken back to the observer effect once again. When you understand the observer effect, you understand that it is suggesting that each individual sees what they believe to be true. If perception actually works this way, and it probably does, because if it does, that explains why we all see different things sometimes, then on the level of experience, postmodernism is absolutely true. But it also means that there is a truth of a higher order, which is simply that perception is subjective, which is saying something about perception, but not about the truths at large. So if perception is subjective, maybe we should just call that the ultimate truth that postmodernism has given us, and then start looking for the means to arrive at the ultimate truth again. Why do this? Because we are all killing each other right now over our disagreements about truth, and clearly, it isn't about what is true that decides who prevails or not, but rather who holds the strings of power. And that's a soul-crushing idea that untruth could prevail over the truth. I'll leave it there for now, but with this one reassurance that I want to repeat from my last video. The truth is love, and nothing else is true. If you can imagine another truth that everybody could possibly get behind, please leave it in the comments, because I can't imagine any other candidates that could possibly win the day. Have a wonderful day, full of blessings and miracles, and I'll see you again next time.